The more I hear from Mark Carney, the more I am sure that he is not the man to do the job. Not only is he one of the architects of the problems that face Canadians, but he also wants to continue down this pathway. He can't even see the destruction that it's caused. Welcome to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. I'm your host. Canada's unelected Prime Minister, American businessman Mark Carney, went hat in hand to Alberta so that he could ask Danielle Smith if she would agree to his emissions cap. Danielle Smith not only refused to accept the emissions cap, but she released a statement on 10 demands. I will cover that in a different video. Because Mark Carney then went from that meeting with Danielle Smith, he scooped up the mayor of Edmonton, where they stood in front of a row of houses that were being built, and tried to take credit for the building boom that's happening in Alberta, claiming that it was all about the accelerator fund and had nothing to do with Danielle Smith's policies on building and the money and the investment that she's given to schools and hospitals and many other things that Alberta is utilizing so that they can build a better culture society. Where it really falls off the rails for Mark Carney, however, is when he gets confronted by the press out west and how they are clearly more loyal to Alberta than they are to the mainstream corporate media. And they're asking tough questions, probably because they know many people who are affected by the negative and the horrible decisions, economic or otherwise, made by Mark Carney's predecessor, Justin Trudeau, on the advice of Mark Carney and some of his friends that live in Switzerland. I'll be honest with you. The answers were all word salads. They in no way, shape, or form addressed the question that he was asked, but the questions were tough. And the way that he dodged and weaves speaks volumes. It tells us enough. It tells us everything that we need to know.
You met with Premier Smith. She's advocating for the private sector to build pipelines across Canada. What I want to know is, you've said you're open to this kind of development, but can you make a commitment to Canadians and to Albertans that you will fight to get pipelines built?
Yeah.
That you will fight in the way that the industry wants, getting rid of the West Coast tanker ban, reforming C-69. Will you commit to those things?
Yeah, Dave, let me tell you part of the focus of that meeting, because it goes directly to your question. It's about getting things done. It's about getting, yes, pipelines built across this country so that we can displace imports of foreign oil. It's about building out the energy infrastructure more broadly here in Alberta, which I would add would include projects such as the pathways. It's about building energy corridors and trade corridors, including potentially up from here through to Nunavut. So we have additional deep water ports and opportunities there. And so the commitment is to deliver those projects like those that we agree that are national priorities, and then the federal government, using all of its power, including new legislative powers or new legislation, in order to accelerate delivering those projects. So then it gets into details of what's changed here and there, but the commitment is to deliver faster at a different scale.
Well, here we go again. More word salad coming out of the Liberal government. We shouldn't be surprised after 10 years of the Liberals not answering a straight question with a straight answer, that they're going to continue to not answer a straight question. Perhaps they've forgotten how. I believe that he had plenty of opportunity to say, yes, I'm going to repeal all of the environmental laws that I have passed so that Canada can get down to business, so that Canada can begin to work and bring home jobs and create money and wealth and revenue for the Canadian people. I believe that he really wants you to think that he's about to do something, but actually he's just stalling you so that if you elect him in, if you're foolish enough to waste your vote on this guy, that you're going to then be disappointed because he's going to turn around and change everything that he said. He's going to go back on everything, and it'll just be a stall tactic. It'll be, oh, yeah, no, we're getting to it, just like everything else, right? They're getting to it. It's always around the corner with the Liberal government. He had plenty of opportunities to say what, he could. It was a simple, straightforward question. He could have just said, yep, I'm going to get rid of them all. Instead, he wanted to talk down to Canadians. He wanted to act like he was saying something of substance. In reality, he was saying Nothing. He was just going all that way so that he could say, no, I'm not going to do anything about Bill C-69. We can absolutely draw from his avoidance of saying that he was going to do something about it, that he is going to do nothing about it, that he is going to leave all of his environmental policies in place. And if you are going to make the mistake of trying to elect this man, that he is going to make all of those environmental laws worse. And they're going to benefit the green projects that Brookfield is building in all likelihood. So on top of the conflict of interest, he's going to make all of us dirt poor so that he can make himself a couple of dollars. Because that's the character and caliber of the kind of individuals that seem to want to lead the Liberal Party. They don't want to worry about all of us. They only want to worry about themselves.
The Trump tariffs proposed, they're a big threat to our industry.
Yeah.
They're deregulating in the States. They're getting rid of taxes, carbon taxes, all kinds of taxes and regulations to free up industry. You're talking about bringing in an industrial carbon tax and supporting the emissions cap in Alberta. How is that going to help Canadian industry in the face of this threat from the United States?
Well, first is the question of access, reliable access to the U.S. market. And in order to have reliable access to the U.S. market, we're going to need a comprehensive renegotiation of our economic and security partnership with the United States. The American government has chosen to violate a number of aspects of that partnership for reasons known only to themselves. They're putting a tax on Alberta oil that serves no purpose other than to raise the price to U.S. consumers. And more broadly, the taxes on steel and aluminum and other ones coming, or the tariffs, I should say, are outside the legal framework of CUSMA, USMCA. Okay, so we need to recast that. What we need to do in parallel is to make sure that our industry is as competitive as possible, and I'm much more interested in increasing the competitiveness of our energy sector, of our manufacturing sector, of our AI sector, and working with industry and with provinces on specific ways to get those reductions, as opposed to, and last point, which goes to your question, as opposed to having preset caps or preset restrictions on preset timelines. Thank you.
Well, there's another tough question. Simple and straightforward. How is it that all of the world is deregulating? Your regulations are not going to help Canadian industry. How are they going to help Canadian industry? Pretty straightforward question. He went on about what Donald Trump is doing in the United States, and then he tried to tell you that Canada's businesses are going to be more competitive by adding on carbon taxes, by adding on taxes to all of their products, by restricting what they can build, where they can build it, by making them jump through 10, 15 years of red tape just to maybe get started on hiring a guy that might be the guy that hires other people. And he wants you to believe that he's using the word competitive, right? Like there's no competition in that. They are going to take every drop of oil and they're going to make real money off of it. They're going to take everything to Canada. Where else are we going to send it? The EU is not in the market for our products. They're right now buying Russian petrochemicals, which also get manufactured without a carbon tax, meaning that they are not going to pay our extra fees, which is what it means to be competitive. How can we produce the product and get it to market on the same level as countries that don't have a carbon tax, that are not over-regulated, that are just saying to themselves, let's get her done, drill, baby, drill. How can we hope to compete with a man like Mark Carney, who wants to control every single aspect of your life so that he can see how much of it he can steer towards Brookfield and his own personal pocket? You go hungry sitting there in your high-rise condominium crammed in with your neighbors, listening to them burp while you're all out of work, so that Mark Carney can fly around the continent on Canada's private jet from mansion to mansion, saying, oh, we're going to be competitive in 10, 15 years. Don't worry about it. Meanwhile, you're going hungry and you can't even get a family started because you got no money, and all the houses that are around are all strictly controlled by the corporation and the government, And they're going to just tell you that you're not qualified, or, yeah, you're qualified. Sit tight. We'll let you know in 15 years if you can finally have one. What kind of future is that? No matter where you land on the political spectrum, how do you hope to get anywhere if you can't get out, if the government is in your every single second of your life? How do you hope to get anywhere when the man is asked two straightforward questions and he weaved and bobbed and gave word salads without actually saying, well, the reality is that I'm not going to do anything about it. In fact, I'm going to bring more regulation in. Unbelievable. This is economic disaster written all over it. There was another local reporter that asked Carney a question, and he made it very obvious that he wasn't going to put up with any foolishness from Mark Carney. It's kind of funny, and I saved it to the last because it shows a couple of things, which we'll discuss in a minute.
You have not been elected in a federal election yet, and you recently flew to Europe on government wide-body jet at the expense of at least $500,000. So the question I have for you today, and maybe I'll say this before I ask the question, these people around you all paid for that flight, and you've not been elected yet. So will you commit to refunding these taxpayers for that flight?
We're in an economic crisis that's brought on, I'm going to answer the question, brought on by the tariffs that have been put on Canada, actual and prospective. One of the challenges...
The economic crisis was brought on by former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and you were his advisor at the time.
I think you would find...
These people did not create that problem.
I certainly... hey, nobody in Canada created that problem.
Let me begin by saying hats off to that reporter for standing his ground and not letting Mark Carney bully him. Let me say that I believe that he was in the absolute right to confront Mark Carney on that, and that it is shocking that Mark Carney can't take responsibility for his own behavior. He'll stand up and say that he's, in the leadership, he was all like, well, I've been here for 7 of the last 9 budgets. So you've been advising the man who in public, Justin Trudeau, says that he's not very good at math, and the journalism major, Chrystia Freeland, who was the finance minister. Really, it seems that you were probably the one who was the architect of all of the budgets, and you were just simply like hiding in the background, sitting in the shadows like people like you like to prefer to do. And now you don't even have the character to say, yeah, you know what, we're probably very responsible for it. Instead, you're trying to say that it's all somebody else's fault, but it's your fault. You've been there for 10 years and you guys are the ones that have done it. Nobody else did it. I mean, I guess if you want to say that it's all Jagmeet's fault, that's something between you and Jagmeet, but the Canadian people know better. The Canadians and the reporter in the room and all of the rest of it know that your economic policies have brought Canada to the brink of ruin. And Donald Trump, who passed tariffs against at least a dozen other countries, none of those countries are talking about how they're going to collapse in on themselves because they have no other trading partners. Most of them are saying, you know what, let's just make our product in the United States. It's only the policies the country that has been following the policy of the Liberal government that's in trouble. It's only Canada with its no internal trade and everybody living along the same border so that they don't have to build any roads to the north, they don't have to build any mass transit, they don't have to build any railway that will haul supplies. It's only Canada that's looking down the barrel of a recession or even a depression or a full-on economic collapse. And you have the nerve to stand there and try to gaslight us into saying that there's nobody in Canada responsible for what's going on right now? There's all kinds of people responsible for what's going on right now, and they all wear the red L of the Liberal Party. They are all members of the Liberal Party. And they are the ones that are responsible for the economic destruction that we are staring down the barrel of. They are responsible for the problems and the hardship and the housing crisis and the food crisis and the inflationary crisis. They are responsible. You can't on one hand say that we've been doing it for 10 years and then on the other hand say it's not our fault. It's all some, a butterfly turned left in China and now everything fell to pieces. And I find it infuriating that you're standing there claiming to be the leader of the country and you can't even accept responsibility for your own behavior. He went on for another 2 minutes about how he's going to make he's going to open up Churchill maybe a couple of years from now. And then the reporter said, so I'll just take what you said as no. Mark Carney is not the man who he claims to be. He's not even the man that he wishes he was. He's just a guy who is seeking to capitalize on our generosity, seeking to capitalize on our ignorance in voting, to make himself extremely wealthy and make the rest of us extremely hungry, extremely homeless. He wants to destroy not only the country, but our way of life. I mean, there's no other way to look at it. If you can't stare at the issues that Canada are having right now, if all you got is Pierre Poilievre's ideas, if everything that you do comes out of the mouth of Pierre Poilievre, it stands to reason that Pierre Poilievre should be the one leading us out of the problems. Because if you're only saying things that Pierre Poilievre says, that means that you don't have any conviction. And the second that you get an opportunity to go the other way, you're going to do that. You're going to say, oh, well, it was all just a giant misunderstanding, and I'm going to go ahead and change it, and my press is not going to report on it, so it's all going back to the way that I wanted. And in fact, it's going to go even worse while I fly around the continent on the jet made by Canadians, and you all sit around eating crickets in your high-rise, high-density, with no way to go shopping and no way to talk to one another. And if any of you say anything, I'm going to cut off those crickets and you'll start eating the gyprock. It's terrible when you think that this guy stands up there all smug and content, trying to pretend like he knows what leadership looks like because he's been a CEO and spent his entire career raiding where other people have worked hard and just taking over homes that have gone defaulted on, or farms that have been defaulted on, cutting down trees where he's telling you can't even pull a leaf off of a tree, making pipelines while he's trying to convince you that you're not allowed to have any. Imagine how many oil tankers that Brookfield controls while they move their oil all around the world, and telling you that they won't put one off the coast of British Columbia. This is terrible. And anybody who can't see it for what it is, anyone who doesn't understand that what you're looking at is a person who's just simply full of it, has no intention on following through on any of the promises that he's making, and has no intention on changing the path that the Liberal Party has taken Canada to thus far. And if you can't look at the path that we're traveling on and see how it is responsible for the problems that we have in this country, then really you need to step aside and let somebody who can see the problem, who is able to understand where the problem has taken us, where the problem has brought us from. Because Canadians deserve better than to be led around the nose by some political activist who's pretending that he cares about people, and really he's just trying to tell himself that he's warm and fuzzy while he gets rich, and the rest of us do get poor. All right, I'm going to wrap here. I want to thank you for listening. I'll talk to you next time.